And welcome back. Time for another episode of Let's Get After It. In today's episode, we are going to talk about beadlock wheels. What's different about them, who needs them, why would you want them, how do you work them, all that good stuff. This is a question and a topic that I see a lot online, Facebook groups, Instagram, all that good stuff. I hear it from customers, you know, the shops, the techs, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to take the next few minutes here and go over that and just kind of talk about them, give you a little information on them, just kind of get your knowledge base on beadlocks a little more well-rounded. So let's dive right in. So a beadlock wheel is simply a wheel that has a ring. The wheel comes in two pieces. You have your basic wheel, which looks like pretty much any other wheel. In fact, a lot of companies have the same name wheel in beadlock form and non-beadlock form. And what they're doing is then they're making a separate piece. And that piece is a beadlock ring. And that beadlock ring sits on the outside of the wheel. And the tire, the lip of the tire on the outside of the wheel, gets sandwiched in between a lip that stays on the wheel barrel itself and that beadlock ring. So if this is the wheel and this is the ring, the tire sits right in here. And when that happens, we then bolt down, using grade 8 bolts. We're then bolting down anywhere between 18 and 24, 25 bolts around the outside edge of that wheel to physically have a mechanical structure that locks that tire to that wheel. Why do we do that? We do that really for off-road purposes, and really even for off-road purposes, even more simply, so we can go really low on tire pressure. When you go off-road, everybody wants to drop tire pressures, they want to disconnect sway bars, all that good stuff. And we want to do that. But generally, the more extreme you're going off-road, the lower you want to run tire pressure. Well, on a non-beadlock wheel, it's just kind of on there with its own pressure. We put that on a tire machine, on a regular wheel, we hit it with a lot of air really fast, it blows it up, pop, and it sets on that bead on the wheel. There's really nothing mechanical holding that on there other than tight tolerances and air pressure. I mean, that's it. So what you can run into is if you take a standard wheel, for example, and you go down to 10 PSI, 9 PSI, 8 PSI, and you're getting too low, you can actually de-bead, unseat that wheel, because there's nothing holding it there at that point other than hopes and dreams and maybe some bubble gum. I don't know, not much. So when we use a beadlock, we're actually physically fastening that wheel to that tire with those bolts. And now we can run 1 PSI, 2 PSI, 3 PSI. And in 99% of situations, the tire's not coming off. So we're able to take that air out, the tire gets flatter, it gets wider. Obviously, the wider we can make a tire, it's gonna grip over rocks better. There's gonna be a lot more what we call contact area, contact surface area, contact patch. You can hear it called a bunch of different things, but it is basically the amount of tire rubber hitting a given surface, rocks, mud, dirt, whatever. And that's what we want for going off-road. So, if you're not gonna, if you're never gonna go off-road, beadlocks aren't for you. Now, that's not to say I haven't seen customers, that will buy beadlocks, get them custom painted, get them powder coated, all that for looks. And people will do that. People do that all the time. It's totally normal. If you're willing to pay that money just for the looks of it, by all means, knock it out of the park, go for it. But from a performance standpoint, we're running beadlocks for the sole purpose of getting tire pressures very low with the express reason of not losing the bead on that tire. You lose a bead on a tire, seen it on the trail 100 times, that's a bad thing. And I've seen numerous times when I've gone wheeling and there's only 1 or 2 in the group that aren't running beadlocks, and it's those guys we're having issues with, all day. And this is more on the serious trails. Beadlocks aren't really a huge thing if you're going to your local off-road park and you're hitting the greens and maybe a blue here and there. You can still air down a normal wheel to the mid to upper teens, and you're not gonna have a problem. I can't guarantee that, but you're probably not gonna have an issue unless you're sitting there bouncing it off the rev limiter, going airborne with the front tires off a rock obstacle. But if you wheel it smart and you have some control in your right foot, you're probably gonna be okay. So, that beadlock is just when we're getting more serious. I'll touch real quick on a double beadlock. Basically, a double beadlock is just a way more complicated version of a beadlock. And the simple version of that is we're locking not only the outside, which we already talked about, but we're gonna lock the inside of the tire too. On a standard beadlock, which is 99% of the beadlocks you're gonna see, we're locking the outside bead, but there is a little bit of a special design on the inside of the wheel barrel, that's gonna help you on that inside. So you don't have to worry about, well, I got a beadlock, but I'm still gonna DB because I'm on the inside. No, just the simple fact of that outer locking that tire into position is not gonna let it move clockwise or counterclockwise on the wheel. So then we just have to keep it from popping out, which that has it on the inside of a beadlock. But a double beadlock, you know, mil spec, whatever you want to call it, is going to lock them inside and outside. I personally have never run a double beadlock. I've not seen the need to do it. I have had some customers do it. I have not personally done it, but I've also never blown an inside bead either. I've cut some tires, I've cut sidewalls, I've popped holes, I've done that, but I've never lost an inside bead on a tire. And I can personally attest that a Jeep I've been driving has left the terrestrial part of the planet more than once, so I never had that issue. So good beadlocks, you know, good tire, you know, good installation, torquing those, you know, when you're mounting them, making sure you're doing a crosshatch pattern, making sure you're getting that 20 to 22 foot-pounds is going to be your torque generally. Make sure you're checking. If you're doing it yourself, make sure you're checking. Something to be mindful of when you're buying them from a shop. Do understand that install of a beadlock is more expensive, generally 2 to 3 times more. And the reason for that is we have to you can't mount them on a tire machine, right? You're gonna physically put that tire on that wheel, and then every single one of those bolts on that beadlock ring has to be tightened by hand. They have to be torqued by hand. So they're gonna take longer. So it's not uncommon to see shops charging a half an hour or so per beadlock wheel. That's normal. That is to be expected, so don't freak out when you see that on a quote that you get from a shop, that, you know, oh, I thought I was gonna pay 20 bucks a tire to get them mounted. No, it's not gonna be 20 bucks a tire unless somebody didn't realize you were doing beadlocks and you got one over on them. So if that's the case, congratulations. So just kind of understand what that is, understand what you're doing it for, and generally price is not gonna be a thing there because you're doing it again for off-road performance, and like everything we do for off-road performance is going to take, you know, you need better, you need more quality, and of course better and more quality costs more money. So just be aware of that when you go in to looking at beadlocks. So that's pretty much it when it comes to beadlocks. Just know what they are. They're more expensive, but they are better for certain circumstances. You're a heavy-duty off-roader, you want to lock that tread in, you want to make sure you're not going to de-bead a tire, hey man, beadlocks are probably for you. But if you're just going to go around town and the most off-road you're going to see is the rough spot getting into the gas station, probably beadlocks are not going to be for you unless you just want to kind of pay for that cool factor, and that's cool too. A lot of people do that. A lot of people, myself included, you know, will take beadlock rings and custom powder coat them and all that. Totally cool. You're not going to get any hate from me on that because I've done that. I currently do that. So yeah, do it up, make it yours. Again, building it for what you want to do, building your vehicle for what you're going to do with it and what you want to do with it. Always super important, and beadlocks may be a part of that. So just take a look at them. If they're for you, great. If they're not, hey man, there's thousands of wheels out there for you, and I'm sure you'll be happy. And just making sure you're getting the right thing for your vehicle.